I'm telling you right now, we all need a plan. And I hope that plan really includes community, because that's going to be really important moving into our future. You know, cryptocurrencies, what's happening in China, because frankly, China does love their cryptocurrencies, but they really want to be able to control them. And, you know, all governments, when private enterprise is developing something, they'll stand back. They'll give it lots of room. And particularly when they see the benefit to them, governments, central banks, they will give them lots of room. And that's really what's been happening with cryptocurrencies. And remember, Bitcoin came out in 2009. Now, I have to tell you, I am not making a statement here on whether cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin or any of those digital currencies are good or bad, and you should and you shouldn't have them. That is entirely up to you. But what I do want you to realize is that they are not so independent and free from the system as many want to believe and think that they are. And, you know, right along, China has really been instrumental in supporting the emergence of it, but also showing what happens when they feel like the party is getting a little bit out of control. So initially, you know, Chinese digital yuan, and of course China is more advanced in bringing out their own digital currency than most other countries are. So at first they were like, the digital yuan will coexist with Alipay, WeChat, etc. Now, Alipay and WeChat are not digital currencies because they actually use the yuan, but they are a payment mechanism. And governments, central banks rather, really want to control those payment mechanisms. That's what they're trying to figure out with the CBDCs, because if they can control those payment mechanisms, at least the view of what's happening in there, then they can determine, you know, if you're being, let's say, honest with your full income, because they can see what you're spending. And further tying it to the bank accounts, they can see what goes in, they can see what goes out. But wow, this is only back in March, because we've talked about this topic a number of times. Yeah, we'll just work right alongside Alipay, WeChat, etc. And they were bringing out and testing their own digital yuan, which apparently kind of fails, because people are really more in the habit of using, in China anyway, using Alipay and WeChat. But, you know, again, you go back to, is any government really going to give up their money monopoly when that's really how they control the population, is they get them to use their form of fiat money? You know, as we see, governments and central banks have captive audiences, captive local audiences, and that's part of the design. Because if you're captive, like here in the US, most people really are buying into, you know, dollar-denominated bonds and stocks, etc. So it's kind of a captive audience, particularly when the government says this is what you have to do, right? So Tencent and Ant Group spent a decade digitizing money and payment networks. Now the government wants a larger role, because over the last few years of this internet technology boom, private companies have swallowed up the markets and regulators have fallen behind. We're seeing this really on a global basis. But at the end of the day, and it says the Chinese government will step in and rein it in regardless, I think that you could put any country in there. At the end of the day, there is no way that any government is going to give up their money monopoly, or central bank give up their money monopoly. It's too lucrative for them. If they did that, then they would not be able to print the money or create out of thin air or out of debt the money that they need to pay their debts. So it would really restrict what they could do. This is a battle royale. I cannot tell you who's going to win this battle, but there are titans going up against each other. And part of it will have to be to make these companies smaller, because that way they cannot challenge the government. But this spring, Chinese regulators took their strongest actions yet to cut down on cryptocurrency mining. So we know China's actually all in on crypto, but only a brand it can control, and that's a simple fact. So when we're looking at the future of money, well, China came out just recently and banned crypto trading and mining and many other areas. In fact, all areas. Cryptocurrency's out of the system because what can governments do? They can make laws, regulations, rules. They can shut it down. They can determine many, many things. That's the biggest power that they have. But this is a battle royale, and I think it's fascinating to watch competing currencies. One fiat government decree and the other private, kind of private anyway. But how do you counter all of that? And what actually can you do inside of this battle? Now, you all know that I have not bought into the cryptocurrency space because I am a long-term investor. I am not a short-term trader. And I also know that this battle is going on. So when the battle is over and I see who has actually won, I can tell you I'm going to be able to buy into it at much lower prices than I can right now, because even in that cryptocurrency space, you're going to convert it into dollars in order to get to do anything with it. So I want real money that holds its value until I see and we come to the other side of this mess and we get settlement, right? Who's going to win? Maybe it will be Bitcoin and Tether. I mean, it certainly looks like that is a strong possibility, because certainly Wall Street has created all sorts of products around that. And that's the other piece, not outside of the system. So they're making it easier and easier and easier for the average Joe to buy it. I have not made that attempt myself yet, but you can buy it through Square, lots of other places. And there's ETFs, which is even better for them. Buy the ETFs, because then what you have is a contract that tracks an underlying. But the point is that it is not as invisible and as private as we want to think that it is. But this is, and this is, because when I hold it, I own it outright. No counterparty risk.